Hello everyone, I hope you're all well. So in the previous video, we looked at how to work out the area of any triangle using the area formula A equals a half AB sine C. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to work out the length of a missing side of a triangle using another formula, which is called the sine rule. So learning intention is to be able to find a missing side using the sine rule. The success criteria explains the step you need to take in order to do this. So by the end of the lesson, you will be able to label the sides and angles of the triangle. You'll then be able to work out which parts of the formula you will need to use to work out the missing side. So you'll understand what I mean by this when we do an example. And then third step is to be able to substitute the length and angle into the formula, and then finally rearrange the formula and work out the missing side. Okay, so the sine rule is given by this formula here. A over sine A equals B over sine B equals C over sine C. Again, this formula is given in the exam, in the formula sheet, so you don't need to remember it, but you do need to know how and when to use it. So, as mentioned before, this is the sine rule. It can be used to find the size of missing angles and sides in non-right angle triangles. So in this lesson, we're just going to focus on working out missing sides, and we'll look at finding missing angles in the next lesson. Okay, so the first step, as mentioned in the success criteria, is to label your triangle. So just a quick reminder on how to do this. Suppose we have this triangle here. We're going to use capital letters to label the angles. So we're using A, B, and C. I'm going to label this angle A, this angle B, and this angle C. Then we need to label our sides. To do that, we look at one of the sides. So let's take this side here. Because this side is opposite angle A, so it's opposite angle A, then that side will be labeled with lowercase a. This side here, this side is opposite angle B, so then this side will be labeled with lowercase b. And then finally the bottom side, this side here, because this side is opposite angle C, we label this side with lowercase c. Okay, so that is how you label your triangle. Okay, now let's look at an example. So the first example is in your course notes on page 39. It is section 12.2a. So we are given this triangle. So the first step we need to do is label this triangle. So I'm going to label this side with this angle, with A. This angle will be B, and this angle is C. We're then going to label our sides. So this side here, that's X. Now that's the length we need to work out. This side, I'm going to label this with lowercase a. Oops. This side, that's 11 centimeters. Because this side is opposite angle B, this side will then become lowercase b. And then finally, this side here, because this side is opposite angle C, this side will be labeled as lowercase c. Okay, so now we take our formula. So our formula is A over sine A equals B over sine B equals C over sine C. Okay, so we now go on to the second step of our success criteria, which is to know which parts of the formula to use. And to do that, we check which parts of the formula we know. So for A over sine A, well, we know A, well, we don't know A, but A is X, and X is the length we need to work out. So this is one of the length that we need, so we put a tick next to it. We also know angle A, which is 51 degrees, so we can work out what sine A is, sine 51. So we know what this is also, so we put a tick next to it. Then look at B over sine B. We are given B, we're given the length of B, which is 11 centimeters, so we can tick this letter. We also know angle B, which is 82 degrees, so we can work out what sine B is, so we tick sine B. We don't know sine C, and we're not asked to work this out either, so we don't need C, so we don't put a tick next to it. Same with sine C. We don't know the angle C. We don't need sine C, so we don't put a tick next to it either. So then the only parts of the formula we need is A over sine A equals B over sine B. It's just those two parts, those two fractions. So we need A over sine A equals B over sine B. Okay, so that's our second step of our success criteria done. We now then substitute what we know into this formula. So because A is x and x is what we're trying to work out, we just replace A with x. Then sine A angle A is 51, so we write down sine of 51. Length of B, that's 11 centimeters, so we write down 11, and then angle B is 82, so we have sine of 82. Okay, we now need to work out what x is. Now, because at the moment x is being divided by sine 51, and we want x on its own, we need to multiply this equation by sine 51. Okay, so when we do that, x is then equal to 11 over sine 82, and because we multiplied both sides of the equation by sine 51 on this side goes away, and then we multiply this side by sine 51, so on this side we've got 11 over sine 82 times sine 51. Okay, we now then put this into our calculator. Once we have done that, we should get 8.6326 ... and we then need to round this to 2 decimal places because we are not told what we need to round it to. So then that becomes 8.63 centimeters. Okay, so the length of x is 8.63 centimeters. Okay, so now we're going to look at another example. Now this example is not in your course notes, but you can add this in at the back of page 39. So this time we've got a triangle where the sides and the angles have already been labelled with P, Q and R. So then our formula would then be P over sine P equals Q over sine Q equals R over sine capital R. Okay, so the first step has been done for you. The second step is to work out which parts of the formula that we need. So in the first part of the formula, we've got P over sine P. So I do not know the length of P, but I do need to work it out. So I put a tick next to this P here. I know angle P, so I can work out what sine P is. So I put a tick next to it. I don't know what Q is, and I don't need to know what Q is, so I just leave that. I don't need to put a tick next to it. Same with angle Q, I don't know what it is. I don't need to know what it is, so I do not put a tick next to it. I know the length of R is 20 centimeters, so I can put a tick next to R. and I know angle R, which is 80 degrees, so I can work out what sine R is. So I put a tick next to that as well. So then the parts of the equation that I do need is P over sine P equals R over sine R. Okay, so that's what our formula becomes, because those are the parts that we need to work out our missing length P. So then I now substitute my numbers into this equation. So then, because I'm trying to work out what P is, I've got P here. Angle P is 70 degrees, so then I need to work out what sine 70 is. R is 20 centimeters, and then angle R is 80, so we've got sine 80. So, like in the previous example, we have got, because we need to work out what P is, and at the moment P is being divided by sine 70, we need to multiply both sides by sine 70 to get rid of the sine 70 at the bottom here. So then our equation becomes 20 over sine 80 times sine 70. We can now work this out in our calculator. Once you've done that, you should get 19.0837. And again, because we're not told how many decimal places we need to round it to, then our final answer should be rounded to 2 decimal places. So then that becomes 19.08 centimeters. Okay, so P is then 19.08 centimeters. So that is how you use the sine rule to work out the length of a missing side of any triangle. So you first need to always label your triangle, label the angles and the sides. You then check which angles you know and which sides you know or need, and then use that information to work out which part of the formula you need. You then rearrange your formula like how we've done here, and then you work out the missing side. Okay, so those are the steps to work out the missing side of a triangle using the sine rule.